Kimberley Waldron. I'm the founder and MD of Started PR and Get Started Media. It's a good time to be answering that, I think, halfway through the year at Europe's biggest fintech conference. And I have to say it's been a good year to date. We're growing more quickly than we were last year. I think it's a sign of all the activity, innovation, and a little bit the capital that's flowing back into fintech. And we're seeing our clients grow and we're benefiting from that. I think that's reflective of the industry. Specific to us as an agency, as a comms agency, is that we are now a year and a half old. Even though we all know we're not quite new, we're a year and a half old as being independent. And I think we invested a lot in year one, in our brand, in our own PR, our own advisory board. And 2026, we're starting to really feel the benefit of that and to feel, I guess we're telling our own story as a contributor to the fintech ecosystem. So it's been positive and revenues are growing. We're working with some very exciting clients across AI, fraud prevention, payments, account-to-account payments, and working more in the sort of insurtech, wealth tech space too. It's dominated by AI, but it's good to see that is now moving forward into practical use cases and practical application. We're not all sort of rabbiting around AI. We are breaking that down into where we're seeing improvements at organizational level. We're analyzing where the benefits are, certain sectors of fintech, whether that's in terms of, customer experience, fraud prevention, data analytics. And I think the conversation around the future of finance, we can't miss out on AI. But that conversation is deepening now, which I think is good. I also think we're having quite a global conversation too, which is good. Shortly after this, I'm moderating a panel on how to build a fintech in the GCC. Luckily, I'm not the expert. There's three panelists that are, but I think bringing in that international conversation is something that I'm pleased about. Perhaps a little bit unique to Money20 because of their regional conferences. But yeah, I think the discussion about what's really working, AI and global expansion, collaboration and learnings have been three key themes, I think. So specifically in terms of activities as opposed to the topics we just touched upon, funnily enough, AI is also forming an important part of earned media conversations. So where we focus on is earned exposure, whether that's across events, awards, multimedia outlets. What we're seeing and what is becoming more and more prevalent is that the human voice and genuine human interaction, which is funny because we were just talking about your voice, Jason, and is that the human voice, leadership experience, advice is having a heavy impact on LLM search and rankings and results. So it's been a great year for earned media. So we're seeing at the moment that we want to bring back in those human voices, really draw out the imperfections in founder stories, to have disagreements about the value of regulation versus innovation, to analyze how we're really doing as a sector and as an industry. And to answer the question, what's trending in PR, it is people stories, even within a heavily B2B sector like fintech. And that's multi-channel, that's across owned channels, earned media, and I guess it's a little bit in some paid activity. Yeah. You can see that's bringing back in those founder voices, expert voices, and learnings. I think it's an interesting question. I suppose I started to answer it in the previous one, but I remember 2009 when started the previous agency. A lot of fintech communication was product sheets. It was all about save time and money, and this is why we can reduce transaction times, or this is a percentage of fraud we can get to. And I do think because fintech is such a busy space, you only see it here. We're here, there's other specialist agencies like ours. The press room has just been buzzing with startup news in the press conference. It's very competitive and there's hundreds, probably thousands of businesses here exhibiting. So how do you differentiate? How do you have a story to tell that people are interested in? And I do believe that people buy from people still, even in our sector. So I think that's important. I think to have that human voice is a differentiator, makes you recognizable. but also, finance is at a real pivotal point. We're both excited and threatened by AI advancements. I think it was at a recent Power 50 dinner where the pre-dinner speaker said, look, we need to acknowledge we've got two life forms, silicon and carbon. And I think similarly at the end of the Banking Transformation Summit panel recently, we said, so what does this mean for everybody sat in this room? And I think we are navigating it together. And whether that's people working in exciting fintech finance organizations, whether it's those founders that are starting, whether it's those that are regulating tech advancements, those that are, policing what we do, I do think we need to have conversation. And I know I sound like a PR person, but I think more than ever, having genuine conversations and analysing what we're doing as a sector, and are we really making systemic improvements to our financial infrastructure is important. And the only way to do that, communicate at scale in an honest, genuine human tone of voice, is via earned media. I'm hoping that we carry on in the trend that I guess some of the trends I started to talk about, which were analysing performance, looking at what's really moving the dial. Something I find myself saying on repeat recently is that, are you really influencing positive systemic change? The panel I was just listening to of startups in the press conference here at Money20, at least 3 of them had very, very strong and compelling end user stories, whether that's supporting female migrant businesses with capital and cash flow into the business, to preventing vulnerable merchants from, organized crime and fraud. I think keeping our eye on the prize in that way. I think making sure that we are not an echo chamber within fintech, and that we're actually influencing systemic change and improvements to financial services. On a purely selfish PR level, I'd like to see us also holding the mirror up and saying, are we talking about interesting things? Are we changing up the conversation? Are we trotting out to events and having the same panels and saying the same things? Or are we really challenging ourselves to communicate properly and well and invest in that? So I'm hoping that we'll see the focus on systemic change, improvements to what we're doing, checks and balances that fintech's advancing. And then on a communication level, I hope we keep things honest, open, frank, human, and earned exposure.